Do you want to live more sustainably but aren't sure where to start or how it fits in with your everyday living? The ReNewy Living Podcast simplifies sustainability so you can feel confident to take small, meaningful actions that fit into your lifestyle. Based on the lands of the Awabakal and Worimi people in Newcastle, Australia, you'll learn how to live lighter on our planet through practical ideas, stories from like-minded people, and examples of businesses doing great things. With an open heart and mind, join me, Marty Lee, as we explore how to consume less, build stronger community connections, and thrive in your neighbourhood, wherever you call home. Welcome to the ReNewy Living Podcast. Hello, I'm Marty Lee and welcome to the ReNewy Living Podcast. In today's episode, I'm speaking to Sally Maguire, who's from Shepherd's Groun Community Farm and Eco Village in Maitland. Sally helps you understand what it's like to live in an eco village. And even though there is an overall common ground of smart, simple and rural living, every person brings their own values, ideas and interests of what sustainability means to them.
My name is Sally Maguire and I live in a place called Shepherd's Groun, which is at Butterwick in the lower Hunter Valley. And it is classified as a LSC, which is a land share community.
It's a really interesting concept. When I first arrived here, I went down the gravel road. I had the Welcome Shepherd's Groun sign. I pulled over to see where you lived and there was a kangaroo that came straight in front of my car. So it certainly felt like I was in the back of Maitland.
Yeah, it's a beautiful spot. I mean, this area of the lower Hunter Valley was once a massive food bowl, and this particular area where we are even has its own sort of weather system. We tend to find that storms go around the outside. So it's quite a unique place, and it feels like it's far sometimes because of the way you drive in and there is some gravel road there, but we really are only sort of 20 minutes from the nearest town.
Yeah, you're not very far at all, and from the hospital as well. So it isn't far. It just feels like it's just got this really lovely, calm vibe that as soon as I arrived, I felt like it was at peace.
Yes, absolutely. And everybody says that once you get out here, you know, it's hard to realise that we would all be living out here in this sort of, you know, half-completed village full of houses with heaps of infrastructure that really seemingly comes out of nowhere. But I mean, I guess that was part of the vision, was to create a village and have a place that was safe for, you know, families and for wildlife and, you know, had space to create as well.
You've been out here since COVID time, so the first lockdown in 2020. What inspired you to move from the city to coming out to here in Butterwick?
It's a long story, but I'll keep it short. But basically, we were living in Sydney with two young boys under the flight path in the inner west. We were spending a lot of time, as you do with young kids, going out to parks. We started camping. We started doing an amazing thing on the holidays, which was rewilding, which we went down to the Milton area in the South Coast with Gina Chick, and who a lot of people know now. And we just loved that, and we loved being close to nature, and our kids loved it. And so we just started thinking, you know, we got to get out of this Sydney rut. And also that you want your kids, you want to show them about how to grow a carrot and where stuff comes from, and to have a freedom. And obviously they just need that space as well. And it just wasn't enough for us. So yeah, just started looking around. And I mean, this came out of nowhere because it's quite a unique thing. And you might think, why wouldn't we just get a rural property that we owned? Why wouldn't we just get a hobby farm or something like that? Well, one of the main reasons and drivers that was holding that up was, you know, we don't really have a lot of skills in that area. So my husband and I don't come from that farming background or rural background even. So when I came across Shepherd's Groun and I got to know the concept of it, and what I understood was that you'd be sharing the land with people who do have these skills and this knowledge. And I just thought to myself, well, that will work really well, because I'm not going to pretend that I could sit and start a hobby farm and have some chickens and have some goats and grow some herbs and some carrots and stuff because I don't know how to grow food.
No, and it's pretty hard yakka, especially if you've come from the city and you don't have that background.
Yeah, it's way harder than I thought. It's still hard today, but I was right. There are a lot of people out here who have grown up that way, who are older, who do have those skills. The sharing of those skills and knowledge is part of living out here. And it is something that my kids have benefited from. You know, other kids have taken them yabbying, which is great because I went yabbying when I grew up. So I love that. And, you know, showed them archery or, you know, all sorts of different things. And they're not things that you would come across if you were just sort of living in your own sort of insular bubble in the suburbs, I guess.
All the houses are slightly different. Not all of them are made the same. Tell me more about your house and the building of your house.
I love my house, my hemp house, our hemp house that we live in. A lot of what Shepherd's Groun was about, our catchphrase is smart, simple, rural living. And building in hemp was a very big part of that. So we had a hemp mill down the road at Dungog, and obviously that was being supplied by local hemp farmers. And hemp houses aren't that common now, but sort of 5 or so years ago, they were even less common. I think there was about 300 in Australia when we built this. Yeah, we really were fascinated. We looked into it. We went up to Byron Shire where there was some hemp building going on there. We did some workshops. We talked to architects, we talked to builders, we talked to people who lived in hemp houses, and we definitely decided that that was what we wanted to do. The first 4 homes here were built out of hemp masonry and our house is built out of hemp creek, and it's just a slightly different process, but we both use industrial hemp to build our homes. And the value of hemp as a construction material is its insulation properties. So we're sitting in here now, it's quite hot outside.
Yeah, it is a hot day today. Well, it's about 5 to 10 degrees cooler inside and there's no aircon. It just feels much cooler and you've got the fans operating.
It standardly is sort of 5 to 10 degrees cooler inside than it is outside, which of course saves on your cooling bill and that sort of thing. So it's fire retardant, so it's very good in bushfire prone areas. It's pest resistant, so you don't have problems with termites. And it's also water vapour soluble, so you don't have problems with mould. So building a hemp house was quite a journey. I'd never even renovated a room before or anything, so it really was a full-on learning curve. And I project managed the build. So finding out how to build an off-grid hemp house, which was at the time quite an edgy material, learn about solar, learn about composting toilets, learn about rain tanks and capacity. It was a huge undertaking, but the results speak for themselves and we love living in this house.
You've done heaps of learning, the composting toilet, the solar and the water tanks and building a house. That learning must have been like skyrocketing when you first got here. Where are you at with your learning right now?
I'm always learning. It's a really quickly evolving landscape. So you think that you get your head around something and then something changes. So even since we built our hemp house, there's now another way to build a hemp house. So it's moving really quickly. So it's good to always keep learning. And I think there is always going to be, everybody's trying to reach for this sustainability piece. I think that most people want to tread lightly on the earth. So we're all looking for how that represents itself in our lives. So yes, just continual learning, but that particular part was a very steep learning curve and there was a lot that we didn't know. And I mean, I really don't know why it was like bite off as much as you can and chew like hell kind of situation. But what an adventure, you know, it was incredible. And it was incredible to share with our children who, you know, when you think about that, even the kind of generation that we were raised in is different. Composting is something they've been raised with. Do you know what I mean? Like it's taught in schools now. So, you know, you're dealing with a different mindset and to be able to have that embedded in your lifestyle from the get-go, I think is amazing. I mean, I know our children know what a flushing toilet is, but, you know, for quite a lot of their life, they've lived with a compost toilet and it's not a big deal.
When I first came to your house, I had to go to the toilet and there was this sense of what are the rules? Like, what do I need to do? What can I do? What can't I do? But then they're really simple. And yeah, went to the toilet. And the weirdest thing was I didn't have to flush the toilet. There wasn't that announcement to the rest of the family that you've just gone to the toilet.
Very true. It's very true. You get used to it. And now if I'm somewhere with a flushing toilet, because everybody goes to the toilet here and nobody knows because, you know, you don't hear the flush. So it's a really weird thing now when we stay somewhere and you have that. But yeah, you get used to it, I guess. So, but all of these things that seem like they're out of the box or they're weird, I mean, have we run out of power? Yes. Have we had to buy water in? Yes. But largely you just learn how to adjust your lifestyle and you can live the way that everybody else lives. And I don't know, for me, it just makes me feel better about my own personal footprint, that I'm doing what I can to keep it small.
So you've just taken me on a tour around the property, and what's really noticeable is that all the houses are slightly different. They're made of different materials. And you also mentioned that people have different expectations of what sustainability means to them. So how does sustainability look different for each member of the community here?
Sustainability is a word that means so many different things to every person. And then when you're in a collective, it is different again. So the houses are a great example. When Shepherd's Ground started out, there was going to be predominantly hemp houses, but as it's evolved over time, I think there's 8 or so of them here now, but we also have a passive house. We have different styles of housing incorporating either sustainable materials that they're built from or sustainable ways of building. But then when I say sustainable, that's going to mean something different to everybody. So if you can buy prefabricated panels made out of a sustainable wood source and they get brought up here and it makes your build really quick and you can move in, that could be quite sustainable for you as a person. If you can use concrete blocks that were made from excess concrete from some other house build down the road that they were going to have to just chuck that concrete, and they made some concrete blocks and you can get them for cheap and use them as a retaining wall, that is quite sustainable for you. So everyone's version of what is sustainable is different. So I think what that has meant that everybody here, you have to have that thinking around that you can accept that it does look different for different people. There are different ways in which sustainability can be embodied. And that also, like anything in life, moderation, not this staunch kind of, 100% you have to adhere to principle, because I can't say that everything in my house is sustainable. I'm glad I live in a hemp house and I know all the benefits that we reap from it. But there were times when we just couldn't find a sustainable alternative. And I know from talking to everyone here about their builds that everybody's been on that journey. And sometimes you just have to use something that you're not 100% happy with, but because of cost or availability or whatever, that's just the way you have to go. So that sustainability piece, you might say that the basics are living in a solar passive house with solar, with compost toilets, with rain tanks. But then at the extreme, I know we've got somebody here that will be featured on Grand Design soon, and every single element has been well thought through, lots of handmade earthen floors, mud bricks, that sort of thing. So there's a whole spectrum of sustainability.
Essentially, sustainability or living sustainably isn't about perfection. It's about doing what we can do at that time and how can we make a difference, little steps along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so true. And I guess the good thing out here is you can learn from other people, but it's important to realise not to judge other people. And I think there's plenty of opportunities to look at what you're doing and look at what somebody else is doing and think, how could I do it better? And have a learning around that. But you do need to realise that it does look differently for everyone. And I guess maybe you come up with like your minimum sort of principles and core values, which I think that we have done here. So we all know that we're on grey water, so we can't put chemicals down our pipes. So that's just the end of it. There's no exceptions to that rule because our grey water goes through some reed ponds that quite a lot of us spent some time constructing, and it would kill off our system and then it wouldn't operate properly and we wouldn't be able to keep going if we didn't have a functioning grey water system. So there's a few things that are non-negotiable, but within that, it then just looks slightly different each household.
Yeah, because as you were saying before, everyone has slightly different values. And even going back to building houses, if the value is only sourcing things from a 50k radius, that is one particular value as well.
Yeah, and we have someone here like that. And I mean, I just think that's amazing. And I did not know for some time that that was her specific interest, but I think, great, good on you. That's amazing. Do that if you can. So I can't make that claim, but
No, but you've got other things. Can you share an example of when a conversation or a collaboration that happened within the collective has actually shifted your views or your actions in what you do?
I've had so many of my views shifted during this journey. It's hard to just isolate one of them. When we got out here, and we were the 5th household to move out here, so there was only 4 other households living here. So, and we were still at the beginning of that learning journey. We quickly learned from other people about learning to make do with what you have, but extrapolating that into every sense. So, there are things like not having off-farm inputs, so not bringing in trailer loads of chicken manure, composting instead. And so composting has been a massive journey. Everybody here composts, which is as it should be. And I don't know why I was so late to the composting party. I think I had a little urban compost thing, but now it's a lifestyle. And there are people here who are like the composting queens, and they will tell you everything you want to know. And it's really important, and it uses up all of your, scraps, and then you can use it, to grow things. So it's amazing. And I mean, we saw that when in our council area, we got green bins recently. So we got 4 just delivered, not told about them. I mean, they're sitting down, they're empty, and they've been there for months because there's no green waste that anyone isn't using here. I mean, composting is sort of like a metaphor for everything else. So whether it's eating seasonally, if your neighbour grows 100 zucchinis, then you just have to learn how to make stuff with zucchinis, at that time of year. And being able to have our own meat was something that I didn't know about. We have had beef cattle, we've had sheep, we've had pigs. So learning that you can, have that experience and have the home butcher come. So there's a lot. I think the big conversation is just about trying to use these 277 acres in a way that, gives back to yourself, but also gives back to the earth.
What kind of challenges arise when people in a shared community have the differing sustainability practices?
Lots of challenges, but the main challenge is around communication, because I personally feel like if you are communicating and most people's intent is good, most people want to do the right thing, so maybe they're acting out of ignorance. There are lots of challenges because we can't know what everybody else is doing inside their house, but we all share the same bins. So we all see things like that, but also then education. So if you get a sense that somebody, I'm not going to say is doing the wrong thing, but could be doing something better, why not go down the path of educating rather than judging or whatever? So that comes up quite a bit. Nobody can be 100%. I personally want to shoot from the stars and try and do them better. If I found out that there was a better way of doing something, I would try and do that. But lots of conversations around, specifically, I guess, around waste. There are some really, really low waste people here who would consider that getting takeaway Chinese food to be something they would never do because of the miles on the food, the containers, a whole range of things. And there are other people here who are just trying to parent and work and are definitely going to be getting takeaway sometimes.
Yeah.
So, big spectrum.
But when all those challenges combine, how do you think that they contribute to the resilience and adaptability of the community?
Well, I think that they do, because we have to communicate and we have to keep having these conversations about things. It means that people are always learning. People are getting new skills, new ideas, new ways of doing things. They're sharing things all the time. So you might personally get to take on something that you didn't know before because, somebody else is doing it. So I think it does contribute to that, because if you're one person or one household, you get ingrained in a way of doing things. But if, you're multiple and you have a sharing of information, then you can pivot and adapt and change. And I think that did come into play during COVID when we all found ourselves out here. And it actually wasn't a bad time because, there were people growing food. There were people who had chickens. There was meat and stuff like that. So it was a really big aha moment. And there was so much space. So nobody felt locked in. So we pivoted and adapted. And whereas we were used to having a village where the majority of people go to work or work from home at least, people then weren't working. But then there was a whole lot of pivoting that went on around, how do we keep these kids entertained and educated, and how do we keep ourselves all well nourished, and what do we have within our village, and then who do we know that we can sort of work with outside in our wider community.
What projects or innovative ideas have happened here at Shepherd's Groun that perhaps are missing or a lot more difficult if you're an individual household?
There's a lot of ideas. We're all constantly having ideas. I mean, something that's an idea that's remained an idea, but is still a great one, is to have a trailer full of solar panels that could go around to the different houses and top up solar power for when we have those grey days. So that's a fantastic idea, but we have not actioned that yet.
That is a fabulous idea. I have never heard of that one before. That is fab.
Well, some of us have talked about that, because not everyone, and we don't at the moment, but has a backup power source. So if you run out of power, you just run out of power. But if you had a trailer with batteries, and then it could go around to, because it's great when there's lots of power, but you have a few grey days in a row, and depending on what your battery capacity is, you could end up with no power. So that's an idea that we haven't put into play, but that I still would love to. So that's something. But and then again, on the collective thing, we definitely benefit from doing things as a group. So we can bulk buy fruit and vegetables from a local organic food supplier, Organic Feast in East Maitland, who we love. We have a dry store collective with Honest to Goodness. So we're, reducing food miles by getting these things in bulk, buying in bulk, doing splits, and basically it's more economical as well. So, but when you think about it, if you lived in a street and you had like-minded neighbours, you could do something like that. It's not that out of the realms of possibility. So they're just little ideas that somebody here happened to start, and we're really grateful that, they share them, and then we can all jump on board. And that has happened with buying mulch, buying hemp, buying wood. People might say, I've got a delivery coming from Saddington's, of wood or whatever it is, anybody else needs something. Firewood, there's only a few of us out here who have fires, but we will go in with our firewood together. So there's heaps of opportunities like that. But I don't see them as being isolated to just here, because if you really wanted to, what this is, it's a village, it's a big neighbourhood. So everybody lives in a neighbourhood of some sort. So you could try something like that in your own neighbourhood.
Excellent advice. And I tried to do that at one stage with some eggs from a local supplier in our area as well, and for everyone to come to our place to purchase their eggs from us. So it is that one bulk place. And it's all just about getting in with your right neighbours, or the people in your, not necessarily your street, but in your suburb as well. Whether that mean, as you said, it's those small actions for change, isn't it? Like, if you want to go in for a honest to goodness bulk buying, or supporting a delivery of your local fruit and veg person in your area, or supporting your local butcher as well, they're very easy. You don't have to live in a hemp house to do that kind of big difference stuff. Small actions, big difference.
Absolutely, yeah. Look for those opportunities wherever you can. It isn't that hard when we do things like that. It's just a little bit of coordination, organisation, and possibly just a tiny bit more effort.
And that's what you said, you're working as well. So it also goes to show that there are many elements about living sustainably that you can still do whilst you're working.
Yes, absolutely. Being fully sustainable as an individual or an individual household, I think, is a massive call, because if you have another job, or if you're parenting, fitting in full to the brim sustainability, I feel, is a full-time job. That's what I have learned.
Yes, and it's very unachievable, isn't it?
It really is. But something that I've heard other people talk about is about having that community sustainability. So it's like, you can't grow everything that you need to feed your family, but you might grow some things well. But if you can find somebody that'll grow the complementary things, and you can somehow swap or trade or barter or whatever, I mean, that's a great thing. Or you can take the excess to the slow food market. We do have an incredible slow food market in Maitland twice a month. And yes, some of the produce from here does end up there, because it's extra produce and we're taking that out into our community as, a way of sharing, and then as a way of, so they obviously get to know who we are as well. Doing it all yourself, I think, is a really big goal. And maybe if that's the full-time thing that you do, you can do it. But otherwise, I think, you need to give yourself some leeway and try and find some opportunities that you can work in with others who, are doing something complementary.
They're excellent examples and opportunities, and particularly in the way that Shepherd's Ground has an impact beyond your community gate.
I guess that's something that's in its formative stages, and as individuals, so many of us have seen the opportunities to do that. But, the people who live here who take their excess produce to the slow food markets, we're all huge supporters of the slow food markets, which is a really unique thing in Australia, that slow food market. But even when we host Sustainable House Day, which we have a few times, that's a way for us sharing with our broader community. Obviously, people can come in, but we're sharing the knowledge that we have from building sustainable houses, letting people look through the wider sort of concept of what we're trying to do, even though, again, it's still in its early stages and we don't have everything together or fully formed yet. But it's okay. I think it's okay to let people see a bit of the scaffolding and a bit of the brickwork, so to speak, as you're making these things happen. But yeah, it is really important. We're not a silo in this house, but we're also not a silo within this village. We are within, the greater Hunter Valley, Newcastle area, and there is lots of people doing really interesting, amazing things. And how can we work together with them? So when you talk about the impact that Shepherd's Ground hopefully has beyond our gates, one of the things was we originally wanted to set up something that could become a blueprint for further setups like this. So we're still trying to achieve that. But that's something that I think would be really impactful, because the amount of people who ask me, what are the challenges of living here and what are the good things and what are the negative things? So if we could, and hopefully we will, and I'm sure we will, figure out some of those big things, because you're always going to have day-to-day little challenges and you wouldn't want it any other way. But yeah, that we could provide maybe a blueprint for how going forward more people could do what we're doing, that make it so that it's not so daunting, that it is achievable, that it doesn't have so much kind of maybe, hippie connotations around it or whatever. So that's what I think would be something, that would be quite impactful, would be to be able to kind of pave the way for more ventures that are similar to what we're doing.
Thanks, Sally, so much for your time. It's been an amazing conversation with lots of good insights.
Thank you so much, Marty.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the ReNewy Living Podcast. I hope you're feeling more confident about taking a localised and actionable approach to living sustainably. If this episode has inspired you to take simple action, please follow the ReNewy Living Podcast so you can catch every episode. We'd love it if you could share this episode with your friends. It's a great way to spread the word and help more people join the conversation about living sustainably. You can even send me an email with the episode that really made it for you. Hearing your positive actions for change helps me understand how these stories work within our shared communities. Head over to my website, renewyliving.com.au, for the show notes and blog posts from this episode. I look forward to sharing more stories from the people of Newcastle as we delve into our community's diverse social and environmental practices for positive planetary change from a localised perspective.